Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. Actually, within the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Tons to talk about. Dolphins has signed a ton of people this week. So we'll start here. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins has signed outside linebacker Shaquille Barrett. Excuse me. Now, Shaquille Barrett, I mean, if you look at his stats the last 2 years, you know, he played 16 games last year, only 4.5 sacks. He did start all 16 games for Tampa Bay, though, which is good. So his starts didn't diminish at all. Like I said, he only finished with 4.5 sacks, only 3 TFLs, 9 quarterback hits. And I know everybody's wondering, like, we get to the start of the year, we need, what if Chubb or Phillips isn't ready? Jalen should be ready by the start of the season, but both of those guys have been known to be beat up. Thank God Bradley Chubb, for the most part, until the devastating injury, has been pretty healthy. He has never, I think he missed a game with a broken hand, maybe, or did he? I think he played through the entire thing. I can't remember. But it's going to be important to have depth. I mean, last year's, was insane. And obviously we lost some depth with Van Ginkel leaving. I think physical and still really good against the run. Always has been. It's really, if you look at his career, he's only had double-digit sacks twice. But the thing that Shaquille Barrett does well is he's a physical outside linebacker who can set the edge in the run game. He's a lot he reminds me of a worse Terrell Suggs. Not as good as a pass rusher as Terrell Suggs. You know, not the biggest. He's a little bit undersized, I guess. I mean, he's still a very big human being, but just a great run defender, which is good, and that's what we need on this defense. And I think some of the themes that we've seen here with the new defense coordinator coming in is we're trying to build, obviously, a ton of Baltimore. I mean, he played there, he coached there. A lot of his mentors were great coaches there for the Baltimore Ravens. We're trying to build that on the defensive side of the football, which gets me really excited, you know, to kind of get more physical. And I think that's what we need as a defense. And that's something that we lacked last year, to be a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger. And we've done that with some of the middle linebacker signings. We still have David Long. And I like a lot of the moves we've made so far. And I'm excited to see how they shape that. And it looks like that's the direction they're going in, and that's obviously the identity that he came from, and that's what I would assume we would try to build in Miami. So this kind of fits that type of a player, and is a good rotational player. This is a huge signing. Now I don't know if I would be go ahead and talk about this, but this is a big deal. Obviously, Deshaun Elliott was terrible. It was one of the reasons our red zone defense was as bad as it was. A lot of miscommunications with him, a lot of busted coverages that were his fault, and a lot of pointing fingers with Deshaun Elliott. Gave up a lot of big plays. So it's nice that Deshaun Elliott has left. The Dolphins replace him with Jordan Poyer from Buffalo. Now, I know a lot of Dolphins fans, and again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Everybody knows this already. But Dolphins signed Jordan Poyer. You know, everybody wanted him last year. It's still a massive upgrade. It's only a 1-year deal. It's a very cheap deal. It's only $5.5 million for 2024, which is good. He's older. I don't think people realize how old Jordan Poyer is. He's up there, he's in his 30s. Obviously, first-team All-Pro member, former in 2021. The good news is that we have Javon Holland. Javon's going to be doing all the athletic stuff. And listen, it's cool that we got a coach that came from Baltimore. And it's really going to be interesting to see how he uses Javon Holland. And Jordan Poyer, What I mean by that is, I got sidetracked, excuse me. The good news is that Javon Holland is on the team. He is going to be the free safety. Now, if we go too deep, I still think Jordan Poyer has that ability in him to kind of free roam back there. But he's going to be doing more of the physical in the box stuff. And obviously, this guy's a veteran. He's played very high-level football. From all accounts, he's a great leader. Some things you see of him in the top 100 videos and interviews that he's done. Great teammate. Seen a lot of football, like I just said. So it's a massive upgrade from Deshaun Elliott for all of those reasons. And like I said, age doesn't really concern me because he's not going to have to be. He's not the number one guy. He's not going to be asked to do the athletic stuff. So in Anthony Weaver's defense, he's going to be more on the line of scrimmage. So I think this is going to help communication on the back end. I don't think we're going to have as many lapses as we did last year defensively. And hopefully Anthony tries harder as a defensive coordinator. And we've heard great things about him so far. And he's obviously a guy who wants to prove himself and wants to be here. So that's good. And Jordan Poyer, I think this is a phenomenal sign. It's a massive upgrade from what we had last year. And we got him on a pretty cheap deal. I think there's really no negatives. The only thing is, like, how much of a drop-off in play will he have? I don't think there really is any. I think we will pretty much get the same player he was last season. And it's a great signing. He's also Jordan Poyer, even last year, said how badly he wants to play here, which is a good thing. So this is a really good signing. One of the best of the offseason so far. And I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins has signed defensive tackle Neville Gallimore from the Dallas Cowboys. Don't have much to say on this. Out of all the defensive tackle signings that we had, and I know that a lot of people like Neville, he was a part of a defense that gave up a lot of plays in the run game, and which is concerning. Now, I haven't watched enough of the Dallas Cowboys defense to tell you how big of an issue he was, going towards that. Doesn't have a lot of sacks in his career. So, 6'2", 300 pounds, pretty normal defensive tackle. He's not an overly big player. His TFLs throughout his career is pretty not the greatest. He had 2 last season. He didn't start any games for Dallas last year. Played on all 17 games. So, this was one of those, I was like, not the best, I could totally see him, depending on how things shake out. He could not end up not making the team. Now, maybe he does. He's a young player, which is a good thing, so maybe there's room there to grow. But at the very least, he adds depth. But if he's counting on to be a major addition to which I doubt it, then, that's a problem. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. One of the biggest and best deals the Dolphins have made so far. Probably you could argue, I don't know if I still like Jonnu Smith and Brewer a lot, but this is up there with those guys. And Dolphins sign, this comes from Pro Football Rumors, Dolphins sign Kendall Fuller to a 2-year deal worth up to $16 million. Obviously, it's interesting how the lineup is going to work. I would assume, which is a good thing, by the way, I would assume this is going to replace this is going to replace Kader Kohu, is what I would assume. And if that's the case, then this is a phenomenal move. And it should bump out Cam Smith to the second cornerback spot. Now, we've heard rumblings that Jalen's going to be moved around a lot. Maybe he plays a little bit more inside. So it's kind of up in the air of what the defensive lineup will look like. But at the very least, this is a player who's played inside a lot in his career, has done everything that a corner has been asked to do. Still a really good player, even though he's a little bit older. And what I'm hoping is this replaces Kader as the slot corner. So, great. And PFF loves him. if you're big into that. So there's a lot of positives with Kendall Fuller. I really like the signing. And hopefully this kind of kicks one of the worst players on the defense last year out of the lineup. And it's a massive upgrade if that is the case. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have signed Benito Jones and they re-signed defensive tackle Deshaun Hand. I know, Deshaun Hand is whatever. He was actually terrible for us last year. It's kind of wild that he's back. But Benito, I believe this is more of a Baltimore Ravens player than even Neville Gallimore, or if I already forgot his name. I get his name mixed up. But by all accounts, had a really nice season for Detroit last season. He's a bigger player. He's only 26 years old, which is really good. Younger player again. Big defensive tackle, bigger. Probably the biggest one on the roster right now. He played in all 17 games for Detroit last year. Started 15. Had 3 TFLs, 6 quarterback hits, and a sack. But this is more of the prototypical nose tackle. Bigger player. I would assume that's what his role will be. And I know a lot of Lions fans thought he had a nice season for him last year. Not even a starter for the most part. I mean, he started 15 games. But I like this. This is probably my favorite probably my second favorite out of the defensive tackle signing so far. So that was, I think, a good hole that they filled on a pretty nice contract. And he's still a younger player, so we'll see where that goes. But more of a Baltimore Ravens type of a defensive tackle out of all the guys that we have signed so far. This one blew my mind. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Return specialist Braxton Berrios re-signs with the Miami Dolphins. The only reason I could see him is the only reason would be special teams, which is fine because he did a good job on punts and kicks. So this doesn't really make me upset. I just hope he's not relied on as a receiver. I love how this offseason everybody's starting to wake up to the fact that we need a third wide receiver, and it's been a massive issue for the first 2 years of Mike McDaniel's start to his career in Miami. It's been a big problem. I mean, the third guy it's just been such a big drop off from the top 2 guys that it's too big. And one of them gets hurt or one of them gets banged up. The offense is not even like remotely close to what it normally is. It's not even, I would say, a good or an average offense at times when those guys get hurt. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. This does not address it. And the good news is that the receivers in this draft are really good, which we're going to talk about here in a second, but which is a good thing for the Dolphins. And they have a first and second round pick, which is good. But yeah, Braxton Berrios, he was very disappointing as a receiver, especially as a slot receiver. And Jonnu Smith said it when he came to the Dolphins, is that there's going to be a lot of open space in the middle of the field. Which is true. And you would think in the short, not that, because people don't really, I'm being dead serious. A lot of our throws are 15, especially on those dig routes, deeper down the field. Like, we need someone to catch a 5-yard pass and turn it into 10 yards. And Braxton thought he could do that as a slot receiver, but he couldn't. So it doesn't fill that issue, but bringing him back as a special teams player, I don't think is a bad thing because he did help us in that department last season. Speaking of special teams, which this is one of my favorite signings of the offseason so far, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins signed Ciaran Neal from the Buffalo Bills, who's a really good special teams player and cost us the AFC East Championship and a home playoff game. Was Justin Bethel, and I don't even know what kind of effort that was. I think every Dolphins fan knows what I'm talking about. So to me, this is a great signing. Younger athletic player on special teams I would assume replaces Bethel at that position. Dolphins still have the draft coming up as well. And we'll see what they do with special teams going forward. But this is a massive upgrade to what the Dolphins had. And covering kicks was a problem. And it's nice to get a player who is a special teams player and specializes in that. And is younger and does it at a high level. One of my favorite signings of the offseason. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins signed defensive tackle / defensive end Jonathan Harris from the Denver Broncos. I would say this is probably tied with Benito Jones in terms of this is a good player. Kind of, again, I think we're going to run a bigger front. 2 defensive ends, a defensive tackle, outside linebackers, more of a 3-4 than a 4-3, or more bigger fronts than what we did last year, less nickel, I would say. And so he's gonna probably play that 3-4 defensive end role, I would assume. Not necessarily a nose tackle. Again, I think the closest thing to that is probably Benito. But it's a good, the Dolphins are building a bigger front with these defensive tackle signings, defensive end. Like this Jonathan Harris, who's a run specialist type of a player, rotational guy. And I'm all for that. I really like that direction defensively. To be more physical, get bigger on that side of the football. And I think that's what they're kind of trending, or not kind of, that's what they're trending towards. And I think it's a good thing, because losing Christian Wilkins at the very least, and that's something we struggled with when he was in the lineup, was stopping the run. And the Dolphins still have Zach Sealer, who probably will play more of that defensive end role in a 3-4 front. So, at least that's how, I would, it looks like it's going in that direction. So yeah, not a bad signing. Again, these are not high-level signings by any stretch of the imagination, but these are good rotational players. Who's I guess Benito, as far as so far, would be the starter next to Zach Sealer. Obviously, the Dolphins, which I forgot to mention, lost Raekwon Davis to the Indianapolis Colts, so that sucks. So right now, that's really what the roster is looking like. If they do go with the more 3-4 front with Jones in the middle, and it seems like Sealer and I guess Harris would be your 3-4 defensive ends as of right now. So we'll see what they continue to add. I was really hoping for someone like Eric Armstead. Obviously, the Dolphins don't have the most cap, so they can't really outbid other teams for players like that, which is unfortunate. Did we cover all the signings this week? I think so. I think we did. I also forgot to mention Jerome Baker, who we already know who was going to leave, signs with Seattle. Kind of hurt a little bit. It sucks to see Jerome Baker go. Christian Wilkins, all of these players, those were the core of that team for so long. This last news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins looking to add at wide receiver. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, after all their recent developments, wide receiver has become a position of focus for the Miami Dolphins, which is good. It is interesting that it would have been interesting to know what the team would have looked like if Ezukama never got hurt. And he's still on the roster. That's the biggest question mark on the team, because he did look really good. They had a specific role carved out for him as well. And if you guys remember, coming out of college, he was, the best thing he did was after the catch. And they were getting involved in the run game. He looked like a better player. So that's still a massive question mark. And could potentially still develop into something positive. The Dolphins are also visiting with Quez Watkins, who's more of a lower level player, of a deep threat, faster Robbie Anderson type of player. But the Dolphins need to get bigger, and they need a slot receiver at the receiver position. I don't think anybody's going to really argue that. He's not visiting. Dolphins have shown interest, to correct myself, in Quez Watkins. Doesn't really move the needle too much on Quez Watkins, but the receiver position is really interesting, because if you look at the draft, there's a few names that I love that I think would be good Dolphins, and maybe that they could get in later rounds. Johnny Wilson from Florida State, obviously a bigger body, great run blocker, slow, but that's not why we're drafting him. Would really improve the red zone, and I think obviously a 6'6" frame. Maybe the Dolphins would try to transition him to tight end. They've tried to do that a few times, but nevertheless, they could still put him in the slot. And really, I think would be a good addition to the team as a playmaker, and give, again, a different type of player to be in the offense. And would add that 50-50 element and different throw angles and an easier target over the middle to hit. It's not easy throwing to 5'9" guys all the time. It just isn't. There is a huge advantage in size, and the Dolphins don't have that. So to add him would be a huge help to Tua and give him a different type of player to throw to. And add a lot of things the Dolphins don't have, especially in the red zone and all those fade routes. And Mike is creative in the red zone, but it's hard to do that with smaller receivers. So he's one of them for sure. Tez Walker, who I think a lot of people are sleeping on, from UNC North Carolina. I love him. Would be perfect in the slot as the third option in this offense. And if case Waddle or Reek were banged up, I think he'd still hold his own. I think he has a lot of potential to be a really good player in the NFL. And he's had a lot of injuries in college, but I think, he's 6'3", 4'3", 40. So he adds the size. He still has the speed that the Dolphins love. So Tez Walker from UNC would be a great fit for the team. These two are my favorite. If these two were Dolphins, I think it just would make me the happiest person, Dolphins fan on the planet. Now, I do believe these two would be here in the second round. Ladd McConkey out of Georgia would be a perfect fit for the Dolphins. He's a perfect slot receiver that I've been, and right after the catch, all of it. Would be the guy that would be literally a perfect puzzle piece fit for the Dolphins. And then Jermaine Burton, who I think fits this offense to a T as well. Same thing, very similar to McConkey in some ways. Physical to run, great route runner, great deep threat. He doesn't have the size, but he's just a great receiver. He's very physical. He's 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. Love his game. One of my favorite players in the draft. So the Dolphins have a ton of options. Now, I hope they address this in the draft, because there are so many. Those are just a few names that I would think the Dolphins could get in later rounds. But those guys are great and would be great additions to the team. So I hope they address it in the draft, and because I think it's a big problem with the offense and its consistency. And maybe we do that in the second round, go guard in the first round, and really improve the consistency of the offense and improve its performances in December and January as opposed to September, October. And that's something, I think those two things would help out a lot in that department. So, in this week in review, I thought it was a solid week. I like the direction the team's going in. It was a lot of defensive tackle. I think we still have to maybe add something to the mix there. But they're heading in the right direction. I think those are nice rotational guys. Zach Sealer is still a really good above average player at that position, which is good. Is Benito enough? I know Lions fans love him. He's a run stopper, which is good. So I think they're really starting. I'm comfortable with the rotation as of right now. I don't think it's perfect. Could be better. Doesn't necessarily, does that mean the Dolphins go with a defensive tackle in the first round? I would say no. I hope not. Obviously, it depends on who's there. But, I think it was an overall, they got better at safety. They got better in the secondary in general, which is good. I think especially if they're removing Cater, giving Cam Smith a shot on the other side, I think the secondary is better. It's more durable too, which is good. So I think it was pretty good. I thought, I think we're going in the right direction. I think the defense did improve, and I do like the idea of going to more of a bigger defense and running multiple fronts, not just staying in nickel. Getting bigger on defense, I think, is a good thing. And the Jordan Poyer signing was great as well, upgrading from Deshaun Elliott. So I liked it. I thought it was a really good week for the Dolphins. About as good as it could have been, honestly, from all the losses and stuff. I like what we're building on defense, and excited to see what Anthony does and what the lineups look like. And we still have our core. We still have Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Ramsey, and Javon Holland. That's the core of the defense. Now, it sucks that Christian is gone, but that core is still really good. And I think we're building around it in a really good way. And I think going in that direction with it is better, to be a more physical defense. Offensively, getting Brewer, getting Jonnu Smith, I think we're a great addition to the team. Helps the offensive line out a lot. And if the Dolphins go guard in the first round, that's also a huge positive. And I think the offensive line would have actually improved and gotten more durable, which is good. So there's still things that we don't know yet. It's not a complete picture. The draft is still obviously a big factor in this. And so we'll see what they do here. But so far, so good. I like the additions that they made. No bad signings. I'm trying to think of like a really one that... There's not one that I was upset at this entire offseason. Jordan Brooks is the only one where I'm like, you couldn't have gotten... If I would say is probably... Not that he's a bad player, because I think he's a good player, but... Just looking at the other middle linebacker deals, the Dolphins probably could have gotten someone else, or at least someone that I like better than Jordan Brooks, like maybe like a Frankie Louvu, or even Devin White from Tampa Bay. I think that's probably the most underwhelming signing, just because, okay, yeah, but the market, you could have gotten these guys. So, I don't know. I still like Jordan Brooks as a player, and what he brings to the defense. So, overall, I liked and loved some of the signings for sure. I think my favorite signing so far, that's tough. I think it's still Brewer, Jonnu Smith. Like, it's a tie. I think I said like my least favorite is probably Brooks, just because they probably could have gotten someone better than they ended up getting. But I still like Brooks as a player. And I still think that's a massive upgrade for what we had last year. Because these two, David Long, he did stay healthy, thank God, last year. But Jordan Brooks, for the most part, his entire football career has stayed healthy. So, Dolphins are improving. They're bouncing back from the losses they had in free agency. There's still the draft. And again, you guys got to remember, they still have their core on offense and defense. They just got to add to it. They didn't lose their core. And what hopefully the two cores bring us a championship with Waddle, Achane, Tyreek, and did I say Achane? Waddle, Achane, Tyreek, and Tua. And then obviously on defense, Holland, Ramsey, Jalen, and Bradley. So they're still a really good team. And I like the stuff that they've added to the team for sure. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I can't wait for the draft. I really, like I've said this multiple times, but I really like this draft. And I think the Dolphins have a good spot where they are right now. And they could really add, and I hope they don't mess it up, but they could really add someone who can really help them out right now. So, which is a good thing. I think there's a lot of players in the draft that can, even in the second round, that can come in and help now. So I'm really excited to see what they do. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.